if I blindfolded you and dropped you off in one of the regions, would you quickly recognize the region, like by the food, by the music, by the
Yes.
accents, by so on?
Yeah, the answer to your lovely question, which I hope it would have happened to me, is that yes, you would see different cultures.
Yes.
But uh, different food, most important, different accents.
Yeah.
Or different languages. Since they have dialects, this Baluch is a different language altogether. But so for that matter, Kurdish, which is closer to Persian because they're all Indo-European languages. But Turkish, Azeri Turkish, which is probably closer to the Turkish of Turkey, Republic of Turkey, or to the Republic of Azerbaijan in the north. They're the same, basically. Actually, if you would have looked, that's a fascinating picture. If you have looked at the, let's say, even 19th century or early 20th century linguistic map of Iran, you would have been amazed in the number of dialects, in the number of languages that have survived. This is an ancient country, it's an ancient land, and it's a lot of mountains all around it, or big deserts. So there's a sense of isolation. So you would say here and there you see a different community that speaks differently.
All ancient traditions and languages.
Yes, yeah. And because of the great number of invasions that Iran witnessed over more than 2.5 millennia, of course, there are all kinds of cultures that were introduced into Iran. There are all ethnicities were introduced to Iran, mostly coming from the northeast of Iran, from the lowlands of Central Asia and beyond, and continued into Iran proper. But now what has happened? That's what my point that I wanted to make. Century of modernity or modernization has produced a national culture of great strength, in a sense. I would say I ended my book, the book on Iran, a modern history, basically saying that despite everything else that has created so much trouble for today's Iran, there is a sense of a cultural identity that is very strong. And I think I can say with some confidence that despite these regional identities that are still there and they're great and they should be celebrated, today, if you go to Kurdistan or if you go to Sistan, they all can speak Persian. They all have an education in Persian. So they all basically are becoming part of, whether they like it, whether they like the regime in power or not. They have a sense of belonging to a culture and an identity with the center. And of course, the idea of a center versus periphery in Iran is very old. It goes back to ancient times, because even the name of the country was the guarded domains of Iran. This is the official name of Mamalik Mahruseh Iran, namely that it was recognized that this is not just one entity, but it's a collection of entities,
like the United States of America.
Exactly. But the United States of America, in a sense, you can say that it was a very successful, well, it remains to be seen how successful.
To be continued.
That was basically invented, created, that you would have this sense of it. In the case of an old nation, which has been on the map of the world for 3,000 years, 2,500 years, this is not an exaggeration. I'm not a nationalist per se, but I mean, if you look Persia on the map of the world in ancient times, is still there as it is today. Very few countries in the world are like that, that they would have that kind of a continuity over a course of time. And that's not without a reason, because there was this sense of a center versus periphery that had found there's a huge amount of tension, but there is also a sense of belonging to something. And state is very much at the center of it. I mean, that's why the concept of a state matters for the creation, for the shaping of this culture. What happened is, therefore, you can see that today, in answer to your point about traveling blindfolded, is that you would be surprised to see how much people share. And in terms of, I just give you one anecdote. In 1968, I believe, must have been, I traveled to Azerbaijan. I used to travel and actually photograph.
Not blindfolded, mostly.
Well, yeah, not
Sometimes.
blindfolded. No, not blindfolded.
Yeah.
So I went to a bazaar in the
Yes.
city of Khoy, which is in the northwestern Iran, on the border with what is today the Republic of Turkey. And I went to the bazaar, and I was interested in the kind of a leather work that they produce. So I tried to buy some stuff, and I was surprised to see that how few people knew Persian.
Mm-hmm.
So they could not communicate in Persian with you. Either they have to ask somebody from some other store to come and translate for you. This is 1968.
1960. So even though it's the official language
Was Persian.
of the country, there's still.
Yeah.
So what do they teach in school? So it doesn't matter.
That was Persian. But this guy,
He doesn't go to school.
He hasn't been to the school, or he was not fully exposed to it. And
Or
bazaars usually are very conservative places.
Right.
So it stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
Now, recently in 2004, I was traveling to the same area, not to the same city, but to the same area. And I was amazed to see how the youth, as soon as they would know that you're coming from somewhere else, opening conversation with you, talking about the latest movies that was produced in the West. And it's not only Hollywood. Of course, there's a huge amount of fascination with Hollywood and Western cinema. Cinema is a major thing. Filmmaking is a major thing.
Yeah.
So these kids in the city of Ahar were asking me, we were having lunch. They're asking me, okay, then what do you think about this this director or that actor? American, European as well, but mostly American.
Were they speaking Persian?
It's a complete Persian that I would converse with them.
Do they speak English too? Interesting.
Yes. Actually, you would be surprised to see what percentage of the Iranian youth, at least in big cities, are fascinated with learning language. And for a reason, because they think that's the way to get access either on social media or eventually leave Iran.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And because they don't see a future for themselves in the country, either you have to be part of this regime, or if you hate them and you don't like the way of their life, you look up outside, I was having drivers to drive me around the country in the cities around Tehran. And the guy was a young, extremely well-educated, well-dressed. And we would have looked at him. We could have found him in any street, in any country in the Western world. And his major concern, knowing that I'm from outside, major concern is, well, tell me which would be a better place for me to go. So, well, what's wrong with the place that you're in right now? You are in your own country. You speak your own language. No, this is no good. I have to have a better future. This has no future for me.